just a few seconds. Okay, so now we are on air. So, good evening, everyone. We are PMI Romania, the host of this event, and we are very happy to see you again. Today, we are going to talk about the always popular topic called what is Agile and the Agile mindset, presented by Mike Palladino, who is the president of PMI Delaware Valley Chapter, USA. As always, before starting, let me remind you that the event will be recorded and will be accessible on YouTube. During the presentation, we prefer, most of us, to switch webcam and audio off. Please write any questions you might have in the chat window. As usual, we can stay a few more minutes for further conversations after the presentation ends. Thank you for your patience. And now I invite Marius Badoy, my colleague from PMI Romania chapter, to introduce today's speaker. Marius, please take over the mic.
Thank you, Christian. Welcome everyone to our session today on what is Agile in the Agile mindset. It is a great opportunity for all of us to have as guest speaker today a project management professional with more than 20 years of diversified international experience in companies, designing, implementing, and managing solutions of an Agile Center of Excellence in a well-known global biopharmaceutical company. Our guest is also the president of PMI Delaware Valley Chapter, USA, as Christian also mentioned, and an active PM volunteer for more than 10 years. One of the many certifications that he holds with pride is the PMP certification, and he is a frequent international speaker participating in the PMI leadership conferences this year. It is with great pleasure that I invite Mr. Mike Palladino on the virtual stage. Welcome. And we can hardly wait to see your perspective on Agile and the Agile mindset, Mike.
Okay. Bună ziua. Cum este toată lumea? Numele meu este Mike Palladino. Mulțumesc. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you.
Very happy Mike. To be here. Yeah, very excited. Happy to share. Hopefully, I want to just confirm that the screen is sharing correctly. You're able to see it?
Yeah, that's right.
Excellent. Good. So today I want to talk about the Agile, what really is Agile? And we keep hearing about the Agile mindset, but what does that actually mean? So I'm going to talk about a little bit of Agile, a little bit of where Agile came from, and some of the ways of thinking about Agile. If you're not familiar with it, it's a set of techniques to help finish work. It helps teams come together, work better together. Very nice, high level, but what does it really mean? So let's talk more about that. And also,
nu, Horia, gata, vă rog frumos.
We have a visitor. That's great. So to give you a sense of some of the successes that we see in Agile, this is from just my company alone, where we have 25% faster, 40% faster. One project was three and a third times faster. We reduce waste, reduce cost, lots of better transparency. And we have amazing quotes from our stakeholders that once they switch, they love working in Agile. They want to stay that way. It's more relaxing and they better understand what it is that they're doing. And it has made an incredible impact. Many of us here in PMI, we are familiar with Waterfall. A lot of our original training was based on Waterfall. And in general, we have to finish one phase before we move on to the next. But really, where did Waterfall start? And how did we develop into Agile? Where did all of this come from? In the early days, we had construction projects. Part of the focus was, how do we plan where many of these buildings go? Once we put them in place, it's very difficult to move them. So as part of the effort of creating these buildings, planning was a major component. If we spent too many lev trying to change a building, think of the pyramids. Suppose we want to move the pyramid 1 meter to the side. That's a very expensive move. So planning becomes a very core, essential element to make those changes. When we think of software, and that's where Agile became and began its beginning, in the early days, you had to move a physical switch on and off in order to computer. Early days of punch cards, stacks and stacks of paper, lots of numbers in order to program a computer. But over time, we kept developing higher level languages, easier ways to do programming that made it easy to accelerate the code. Where today, when we build software, it's much faster. We can connect elements. We can develop programs for multiple platforms. And that speed of creating changes and making changes, it becomes much faster and faster and cheaper, lower prices. So let me show you what I mean by this. I'll give you a visual example. So in construction, as I mentioned, there is a very long planning cycle, but the build and execute is much, much larger. It could be years, it could be tens of years, hundreds of years. Many construction projects were very long, and it was very expensive to make a change to those buildings. Software was in a very similar place in the beginning. There was some planning that was needed, but the build and execute took much longer. Our modern day, because the changes are occurring much faster, that planning cycle now becomes more dominant in the overall time of the system. Also, the cost of change has been dropping in order to change software. When we look at the rate of change in construction, there is very few changes that are made once the building is under construction. Very similar with early software. Once it was built, we stopped. But modern software became much faster, many changes. It was less expensive to make all of those changes. And what's happening is we're moving away from the need of extensive pre-planning. And that's where the creation of Agile came from, was recognizing these changes in software. Therefore, we need to change the way we think about implementing different projects. Software is becoming much more of a creative process. Think about if I ask you to create a painting, but before you're allowed to create the painting, you must tell me precisely every single dot of exactly the color it's going to be before you start. That's the type of planning that we're doing, where we think that we can create and describe every single step before we start the actual work. Well, if I'm creating art, I'm creating a painting. Once I've created that painting, I already know what the answer is. I don't need to now start the painting. So if you think of this, that planning is not needed as much. We're just going to go create our painting, and that's what we're going to reference. And as you can imagine, as an artist is painting on the wall, they're doing different pieces. They respond to what they see. They may respond to people watching, and they'll make changes as they're creating the painting. They may have a concept in mind. I want buildings, landscapes, certain colors, but they will not know the precision until they actually do the painting. And that's where software has moved into that space. It's responding to change. It's responding to feedback from our customers and the need to be able to respond to that change. So these are some of the dynamics that's leading to the change that we're seeing. Again, if you're not as familiar, I'm not going to teach Agile, but just wanted to show one or two diagrams here. This will help in the next slides. We have the concept of a backlog or a product backlog. This is our list of things that we want to be created. Our team, our product owner creates all of those elements. We're listing out all of the pieces we want. Bits and pieces, we pull them into a sprint. A sprint is just a time box. If we're saying, in this case, 2 weeks, we're going to work in 2-week increments. So we only bring in work just for the 2 weeks. And we're going to prioritize that work. We meet on a daily basis, called a daily scrum, with the goal is to deliver potentially increment shippable product. Incremental product, what is that? Think of your phones, think of your devices. Every time you receive a small update for your apps, you're seeing Agile in practice. Those small updates are the output of this new cycle, this new Agile type of an approach. If I compare Agile to what it looks like from a waterfall perspective, where we just have these continual cycles. In our more traditional waterfall approach, we did not see the outcome until the very end. We went through, we did all of the planning, we did all the testing, the development. This made sense for construction. This made sense for large projects. We wanted to finish the building before people can move in and begin to use the building. With software, we now have the ability where we can give smaller pieces, let our customers use them, do some more cycles, we add to it, the customer gets to use it more, and eventually we build the entire product. So they're seeing the incremental value throughout time. The more we allow this to occur, the faster we can detect problems, we can detect errors, we receive feedback from our customers, and we can make adjustments. Very similar to creating that painting. So let me explain it in a different way. When we look at waterfall, we typically are adding risk and cost, but we're not seeing the output until the very end. When we get to the very end, that's when our product is released. That's when we get the value of all of the work. If this is a 1 or 2 year project, we may not see value for 2 years. And as you can imagine, the world can change very quickly and dramatically change what is happening. Agile changes the thinking differently and says, let's focus on the most important work first. If we, instead of designing the entire system, let's understand the most important pieces, create that first, deliver that first. Therefore, we get the value much sooner. We're keeping the cost to risk lower because we're constantly seeing the updates. We're constantly seeing what is happening. There's an opportunity for feedback. Now, let me propose a question. What if we decide to stop the project part the way through the project? Because on the left, we designed the entire solution. If we stop the project early, we don't receive anything. That's part of the challenge. On the right side, as you can see, we're still getting value even if we decide to stop the project early. And hopefully we've done the most important things first, the least important things come later. So even if we do not complete everything, we're still getting something, of value. So number one, we're getting it to our customers faster. That's where some of the speed comes from. And there's also some value and benefit of this incremental, this stepwise approach. When we look at the visibility to our customers, with Agile, they're constantly seeing, they're constantly interacting, we're constantly talking to them. So they understand the progress, they understand where we are. I've certainly been on large waterfall type projects where there's a lot of kickoff, a lot of meetings in the beginning. Our customers do not interact. They wonder what is happening. Then near the end of the project, we ask. They want status reports. They want updates. And they become a little uncomfortable if they do not get the visibility. Similar to adaptability, in our waterfall approach, in the beginning, it's easy to make changes, but as that project goes along, it's much more difficult to make changes without impacting the other parts of our system. In Agile, we're saying we're going to build change into the process. We're going to allow that adaptability to constantly happen all the time. So if our artist wants to change something, they can make that change. They build it into the process. The previous slide, you saw about the business value. Waterfall, the value comes much later. Agile, we reverse it. It comes much earlier in the process. And the risk is reverse. Waterfall, there's a lot of risk. The customer will not like it because they don't see it until the end. Where Agile, we're constantly showing them the results. Therefore, there's a better chance we're going to reduce the risk. They will like the output. Now, I've talked a bit about software and IT. What I've been finding amazing with Agile over the past 4 or 5 years, I found that Agile can also be used for non-IT, non-software areas. There's a term called business agility. There's a rather large movement now. It's starting. We're seeing more conferences on business agility. And I'm excited about it because what I understand, Agile is not about software. It's not another project management technique. It's really helping teams come together, communicate better, interact better, and it drives a faster result, higher quality result, and better outcomes. So because we can apply that thinking in other areas, other parts of the business, we can also get the benefit for, say, marketing or sales or procurement or finance, other parts of our organization. I even use some basic Agile techniques at home. My family laughs at it, but our to-do list is on a Kanban board and we plan and we work at home. What do we need to do? What is our work? How much are we doing too much? It fits, it works. So, and one other quick comment. When people talk about, let me rephrase that. When we talk about speeding up in software, what happened is the teams became faster and they said, well, we need to speed up testing. We cannot wait for manual testing. That's where automated testing came from. When the teams realized they must move software between the development environments faster, they realized, oh, we need DevOps to make this go faster. So people think of Agile as being software, but really it is the byproduct. It's the afterthought of the teams becoming more efficient. That's really the core, the center of Agile, is the team becoming efficient, causing the other systems to have to change in order to accommodate the new speed. And that's where we're talking about the mindset, the thinking about it a little different. Business agility, many of these things may sound very familiar in terms of time to value. Can we put out products faster, get them into the market faster before our competitors do? Whatever the product is, it could be a physical product, it could be a software product, could be a glass, so some other type of a physical product. We're keeping the risk down. We're making our customers happier because they understand what we're doing. The overall approach becomes much more predictable and stable. We're building a certain rhythm, a certain cadence, and that allows us to have better predictability. Because we include the change as part of the process, the cost of change actually is reduced as well. So again, some great benefits. Even our employees, our people, our contractors become much more engaged. They want to work this way. I worked with one team, and the first meeting, the person told me, I will not do Agile. I refuse. I am not changing. Okay. I kept working with him. He slowly learned, he changed, he worked this new way. 3 months later, he came back to me and he said, I can never go back. I have to keep working Agile. Will you come talk to my boss and my teams, help them to go to Agile too? I can't go back. This works. It makes too much sense. I get to go home at the end of the day. It's much more relaxing. And the work is better. The work is easier. We get better responses. In order to make, again, some of this change, there's another way of thinking about teams. Part of a lot of teams, we always think of project centric. I think of the project first. Sometimes it takes us perhaps 3 months to ramp up a new team, get people together, put the contracts in place, understand the resource requirements. If it's a short project, 3 months long, we run the project. When we're done, we have to ramp the team back down, roll people off, save the documents, do the normal close procedure. We want another project. We have to ramp up a new team, run the project, and then ramp the team back down again. That's rather typical. Part of the thinking different with Agile is to say, instead of being project centric, we're going to be more team centric, or sometimes it's called product centric. We want to put the team in the center. So we ramp up a team, they work on a project, but instead of building up a new team, let's keep the team together and simply give them the new work. So we're not going to ramp down and ramp up and ramp down and ramp up and keep making the change. We're going to keep a team together and simply change the work that they're doing. We may call them projects, maybe not, but they're going to keep working continually. Let's do some simple math. If I look at all the clocks on the top, 3 I counted across, it's 14 months. In the bottom, I'm cutting out the 4 months in the middle, that's 10 months. Let's do the simple math. I'm actually 71% of the original time, or I'm about 40% faster. That one simple change, I just gave you a 40% speed increase. Interesting. Now let's imagine we extend this. Instead of 2 projects, imagine if there are 4 projects. Let's look at the simple math. If we look across 4 projects, we're about maybe a little more than half of the original time. And we're about to flip it, we're about 75% faster. So just this simple change of thinking differently, structuring the projects differently, we start seeing some very different behaviors and very good speed differences. Now let's extend this concept a little further. There's speed in simply keeping the team together, but there's a different component here. You may remember our Tuckman model we had to learn. The forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning. Sounds great on paper, but I like the graph on the right-hand side. The effectiveness of the team when we start, we form the team, they're good, they're excited, they're energetic, but then they start storming, they struggle. How do they work together? They have to figure out the team structure, figure out the dynamics, the people, the personality. Then eventually the team starts growing back to where we norm, We figure out this is how this team is going to work. That's our norm. That's normal for them. And if they continue to go further, they move into the performing stage. So once we get a team through all of this early phase, they get up to performing, they're very efficient, they're very excited, they're very fast in the way they work. Let's add this to the previous slide. We went from the separate boxes to putting them together. Because we took out building a new team, we also go immediately to performing. The second project is already at the performing stage. The team's already there. So they get another performance boost as well. So some very fundamental ways of thinking about projects, structures, teams that get us to think a little differently. And I'm just giving you a few. These are only a handful of some of these differences. So we talk about a larger context. How do we transform an organization? How do we transform a company? Part of what we're doing is we're thinking differently. We're changing behavior. So the transformation is a journey. It's a continual change. We're not coming in and saying, one change, we're done. It's something we have to continue to do, build it into the culture, build it so it's normal for that company to work this way. It can involve the entire organization. It doesn't have to just be one or two teams. The more teams interact, the more that we're going to have interactions with other cross-functional teams, like procurement, like finance. It could be sales with manufacturing. They need to work better together. So it creates a culture change in an organization. So this does not happen overnight. This does not happen quickly. It takes time to get to that level. Another element is our leaders also need to change. They have to think differently. And part of that is we ask our leaders, it's time to allow the team to make decisions, not the leader. Very uncomfortable for leaders to make that change. They should be celebrating the success of the team. They want to understand the team, understand the personalities, allow the team to get the work done, trust them to get the work done. Focus on the productivity and the results, not on the process. Many leaders want to tell everyone, this is how you must work. Well, let's let the team come up with a more efficient way of working. Let's focus on the results and the outcome. Those leaders should be helping their people with their career development, but also supply a vision and strategy for the team. Now in my company, when I talk about what is, or who are the people who like Agile, I start with the people who do not like Agile, the managers. The managers who are micromanagers, they do not like Agile because they want to tell the team exactly what to do every day. So they feel they're losing their power. They don't understand what their new job will be. So they don't like Agile very much. The leaders who do like Agile are happy to say, let the team do the detail work. The leader can focus on higher thinking, higher elements, and other higher process and higher value work. Now, I don't know about you. I have not seen very many micromanagers become promoted. The people who are promoted and rise in an organization are the people who focus on higher value work. So Agile for a leader also can help leaders move higher into their career. So as you can see, we're talking about changing the team, we're changing an organization, a culture, the leaders. All of these elements eventually have to come together to help drive into thinking about this in a new way. Part of the challenge is, how do we help people understand this new thinking, this new way of working? We need them to think about work differently, but we also need to teach them differently. So I've come up with a way of helping them understand better. When we were children, we learned by doing, by experiencing, trying different things. It's very hard to only think about a problem and be able to implement it. It's that doing, that experience, we learn faster. And that has been known for many years. As children, how do we learn? Did we really sit down and read as children and that's all we did? Or did we learn by doing, going out and playing and getting messy and experimenting and trying things, falling down, getting back up? What did we learn from that? Also think back, when you learned how to walk, you were 1 year old, did you read the manual? Is that how you learned how to walk? Probably not. Riding a bicycle, how did you learn to ride a bicycle? You probably did not read the manual. The same with driving a car. The way we learn these activities are, we have to try, we have to experiment. We can understand the basics, but it's getting in, doing, that's when we're going to better understand what it is we're trying to do. Part of the challenge, people ask me and they say, well, isn't there a book? Can you just give me the book? Say, where's my Agile book? I know the color disappears. Where's my Agile book? Give me all of the rules. And I try to explain, Agile is not about a list of rules to follow. And I try to equate this to the university. University, we can say we all went to university. We have a shared experience. The challenge, though, is if we learn and talk about our experiences, they were different. Some of us went to a large school, small school, public school, private school, in the city, in the country, different countries, different languages, different degrees, different activities. We've all taken a different path in our university experience, but collectively we say, oh, it's a same shared experience, the umbrella of university. Now, my younger daughter, when she was going to university, she said, Dad, tell me what to do every single day for the next 4 years so I can go and pass university. Well, I don't know about you. I can't write that 1,000-page document to tell her every single thing to do going to university. But what I can do is explain the values and principles. Agile has values and principles, the same with university. What are they? Go to class, talk to your professor, study, do the homework, take the test, don't stay out too late, don't drink too much, stay away from drugs, get involved in activities. For the most part, you'll probably do okay. That's how we as coaches have to teach Agile and explain it. We have to help them understand the concepts, but not a step-by-step directions. Once we do the step-by-step directions, we're not thinking anymore. We're just responding. People will spend too much time worrying about, is it right or wrong, versus what can we do to fine-tune, to improve the process for this team, for these people, for this circumstance. So what we explain is it's better to follow the principles. The more we follow the principles, the easier Agile becomes. So I've combined some of these ideas into a little workshop I do at work. Because what I realized is we only retain 10% of what we read. We retain and remember maybe 15% of what we read and see. If we actually do something, we actually retain 80%. And that's what we want to do. We want to attract and hold that and remember the stuff that we do so that it stays with the person longer. So I've taken the equivalent of 8 weeks of experience and squished into a 4-hour workshop. We bring people in, we allow them to experiment. It's fun, it's visual, it's hands-on, and it gets them to learn like a child again. But they're going to retain more, they're going to remember more, they're going to learn more, in that 4 hours versus several months of conversations. So what does it look like? We tell them they have a scenario. They must build a tropical resort, plan it all out. They're going to form their own teams. We're not going to tell them what teams to go to. They're going to run the equivalent of 3 sprints, and they're going to use Lego bricks to build this city, to build this island. We share with them. They're going to have many hands-on experience. I talk very little. They have to interact with each other. There will be success and failure. We purposely want them to fail in a few places so that they learn and adjust and fix it and make it better. They want to learn. That's what we're trying to teach, is how do you fix the problems that you see? They're not going to have all information. It's going to be incomplete. They need to learn. They're going to make decisions. They have to decide themselves. We're going to disrupt them throughout the experiment. We're going to force them to change and watch them actually change themselves in the class. We don't want it to run smooth. And I tell people it's controlled chaos. And I say, take a deep breath. Relax. You'll be okay. And we have some people that get very nervous in the beginning because we did not give them the book of directions. They start out, we say, here's a map. There's 3 pieces of land. There's water all around it. And there's water for hundreds of kilometers in all directions. So they're out in the middle of nowhere. And we give them some scenarios. They have to build them. At the end, this is what they build. This is the island that they put together in roads and structures and buildings and airports and airplanes. They do all of this in 30 minutes. That's how fast they build this. It's amazing, some of the creativity, the buildings, the structures, the rooms. This is a rock climbing wall. This is an outdoor theater. And it just kind of frees up their mind to think differently and change the way that they work and approach the problems differently. They get creative about roofs. They run out of material, so we create them out of paper, for example. Part of it is just getting them to learn to try new ideas. Because what's really amazing is the number 80%. When I finally understood what this number meant, I was shocked. 80% of software features are rarely or never, ever used. Now think about this. Yeah, okay, we're only using about 20% of software, but yet we will plan, we will budget, we will design, we will build, we will test. 80% of something we will rarely or never use. It doesn't make any sense, does it? So again, this is when I talked earlier, Agile is saying, let's focus on the most important things. Just get them into the pipeline, get them into the team, start working on it. Let's not define 100%. Let's figure out what is the 5 or 10 or 15 or 20% and just get that into the system. And that's what they learn in the class. What's the most important things? Let's identify what they are. Every class we've done this with, they come back and they say, we did more in 30 minutes instead of the 4 hours. If you gave us 4 hours to implement this island, they would still been in planning mode or design mode. But they said in 30 minutes, they were able to build that incredible large island, as I showed. It's funny, they have to build bridges. We don't tell them who has to build bridges. They realize, oh, we need bridges between the land. Somebody needs to build it. They talk amongst the teams, they make the decision. That now becomes the new high priority, and the bridges are built very fast. They learn concepts of minimal viable product. What's just enough to get us started? We don't have to build everything, but what's enough just to get our customer to use some basic functionality? Part of what they also learn is rapid feedback. This is also another valuable part of Agile. In Agile, any small misunderstandings or confusion in the beginning can spread to the end so that we don't get the results we desired. Those small differences can cause large problems. Agile, every sprint, we're constantly making adjustments. So as we're making the adjustments, we may not get to the desired, but we're constantly getting closer and closer and fine tuning and adjusting. So we're going to be much closer to our desired result. If our customer decides to change their mind, when they change their mind, we don't pick it up or we don't do a good change management, we're even further away from what our customer wants. Or maybe they didn't even tell us they changed their mind. But because of Agile, we're constantly making these corrections. We're constantly making the adjustments. We're constantly getting feedback from our customers. We can determine and have a better opportunity of aligning and adjusting to the final results. So it's so much fun. They learn about changing the way that they budget. They don't need the big scope of planning everything up front. They learn interactions with each other is much more valuable than simply writing contracts. Contracts are necessary, but if that's the only way we communicate, it can be very difficult. And what's even more interesting is I talked about the university example. We still go to university, but we all do it. It's a little bit different. That's what they learn in this class. Sometimes we run it with 40 people, 5 teams, and every time the 5 teams work slightly different, but yet they were able to pull together this overall program, this overall island, and be very successful. Each team still worked slightly different, but yet the entire whole still came together. And that was another big learning that they have. They don't all have to be exactly the same. And they love it. They just love learning how to work this new way as a team. So I purposely did not talk about the Agile Manifesto and some of the early concepts, but see if these make sense now that I share them with you. I could have shown them in the beginning, but they may not make as much sense. But individuals and interactions over process and tools. Yes, we still need process and tools. They don't go away. We're just changing the emphasis to be more about people and talking and interacting. We want a working solution. That's the measure of success, not the documentation. Yes, we still need documentation, but the question is the solution working? That's the more important question. Are we actively working with our customers, not just looking at contracts? By actively talking to our customers, we're going to get that feedback. It's going to allow us to respond to change instead of simply following that plan. Yes, there's still an overall plan, but we still need to build in and incorporate that change. Some other principles here. Let the team be self-organizing, encourage face-to-face interactions, deliver frequently, satisfy the customer, regularly reflect and improve. That's our retrospective. That's where the team comes together and talks about how do we improve ourselves as a team, not about the work, not about the requirements, not about the product, but we as a team, how can we function better together? Plus a bonus, I'm coming up on the last 2 slides here. The bonus, when I have my coaches also go through this class, they get to learn how to be better coaches. They try different techniques. They see different types of teams. They learn how to not always give the answer, but help the team discover the answer, help get them to think themselves without always looking for the answer from a book or another person. Plus, our coaches learn how to read body language in the room. And we pointed out, look at that team. Do they look like they're getting frustrated? Do they look happy? What's the energy of the room? What's the sound volume? And learn how to read the signs of a healthy team or a team that is struggling. So in conclusion, and I saw there's a couple questions, so I'll get to those in a moment. The more we understand the Agile mindset, the teams can start correcting, making subtle adjustments, optimize themselves. That's what allows them to be their best. That's where we're going to get that extra little emphasis, better throughput, better quality faster results, cleaner communication. All of these elements is what helps feed into Agile. Talked about business agility, the value and benefit of applying Agile to non-software, non-IT areas. Absolutely, it works. I'm doing it today. I've met with companies around the world, even in manufacturing, even in regulatory environments. It's definitely something that's here. It's not a trend. It's becoming this new way of working in the industry. And to help teams, the more that we can help them experience Agile, not just talk about it, the faster they understand it, they're willing to learn, they're willing to try, they're willing to take on more extensive classes to learn. Plus, it also drives a certain behavior where when we get people excited and they try Agile, they start finding us. They come to my team and say, hey, we want to be the next team to be Agile. Come help us convert. So it helps us drive the business to figure out who's ready, who wants to make that transition to be Agile. So great way to tie all that in. But just wanted to finish and say, mulțumesc. Thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation to be here. And I'll start with the questions I see here in the chat, and we'll open it up to any additional ones. So I see the one from Andre, from the contract point of view, waterfall projects, you have the milestones, and when you reach the milestones, you get paid. Correct. We can do similar in Agile with contracts. There can be certain releases, and that could be a payment trigger. It could also be part of a depreciation for capitalization. There's a lot of different elements that we work with our procurement department so they understand the difference. Challenge with Waterfall, I've seen contracts that do the milestones, but they also want to lock in all of these fine details of the project and make it very difficult to change. So we've taught the procurement team, the legal team, to say, we'll only write the contract at a higher level, and we're going to build in process to adjust all of the details and have a mechanism for feedback and course correction and problems if we are disconnected. Is there in the market a classic waterfall approach? Waterfall does not go away. This is what we've learned in PMI and the PMBOK. It's been in the industries for, if I'm trying to think, the beginning is about 100 years ago, but certainly project planning has been around for centuries. If I'm constructing a building, I'm still going to use Waterfall. If I'm moving a team from one location to another, I'm probably still going to use Waterfall. I had a friend of mine, he teaches Agile, but when he plans his courses, he plans with Waterfall because it's the better tool. He said, I have a hotel, I have to book the people, I have to schedule the meals, I have to schedule the equipment, and I have a certain schedule in the class. Waterfall makes sense for him. He should not change to Agile. Agile does not solve all problems, but it's recognizing the problems that have high change, high adaptability. This is a tool that works better and allows that change to occur. Last question I'm seeing here from Gabriella. Gabriella, as a business person, how do I know which method approach is the best suited for my project? Apart from Waterfall and Agile, there's Lean Six Sigma. Agile is actually based from Lean Six Sigma. Lean Six Sigma is focused on how do we reduce waste. So Agile is a flavor or similar to a Lean Six Sigma approach. There's also design thinking. There's also other techniques. In our company, what we look at is if we understand the problem or we don't understand the problem, how do we understand we're solving a problem that makes sense? We use design thinking as the start. We didn't talk about it today, but it's design thinking. Then once we understand this is what we're trying to solve, we have a default position that says go Agile first, unless there's a reason we need to use Waterfall. So we're trying to make that where this becomes the new happy path, the new normal that we do. Lean Six Sigma, I would recommend that's more for, say, manufacturing an operational process we want to improve or make it run smoother. That's typically where Lean Six Sigma, black belt, master black belts are more focused in that space. So they all intertwine, they all interact with each other. They're not necessarily complete substitutes for each other. But this is where sometimes working with some experts in the field, you have a project that can help you better understand which tool to use. And love to hear other questions, comments, thoughts. Do you agree with me, disagree with me? Love to have a good discussion.
Well, first of all, we thank you, Mike, for this nice and very, very clear presentation. My thought is that you explained very well in simple words what is all about Agile and the Agile mindset. Of course, using the Agile or other method depends on the type of the project. So, you know, one size doesn't fit all. So the context matters.
Yes.
Depending on how much you know the problem or the endeavor that you are going to take, you choose one method or another. Yeah. So thank you again, and we will be happy to have you again for a similar presentation or related topics. Let's see if is there any other question from the audience?
Yeah, I do see from Andre. I see his hand up. And Andre, did you have another question?
Yes, hello.
Yeah.
I was regarding the comment I made regarding the milestone. So you made a statement in one of the previous slides that you don't see the outcomes for waterfall projects only at the end of the project, for which in Agile you see them, let's say, iteratively in several steps. And I don't really agree with your statement. I mean,
okay.
yeah, I was thinking, okay, in waterfall projects, you do have these milestones. And when you reach these milestones, you give something to the client and you receive some feedback and some payments. So I wanted to understand a little bit better what was your reasoning behind this.
So yeah, my question back to you would be, how long is it between milestones, and can the solution stand by itself? So in some cases, I've seen milestones that are perhaps 3 months, 4 months, 6 months apart. So the question is, if it's a 6-month milestone, but what happens if we stop at month 5? Does our customer get anything for the first 5 months? Sometimes they still have to wait till all 6 months before they get that milestone and that particular release. If you're using much shorter timeframes where you're doing milestones every month, then my other question is, can those milestones, can you stop and those elements still go into a fully production, fully working solution with no further work being done?
Yeah, to answer your question, so
Right.
usually in the projects I worked in, we had like very large milestones, like 6 months.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
minimum, let's say. The idea is that we planned to keep the customer in the loop, the client in the loop all of the time. So we don't start the project and after 6 months, the client sees the work that has been done until then. No. So we keep him in the loop, and he continuously gives us feedback about his expectations. So this is why I was commenting a little bit. If you are keeping your client and you don't talk to him for 6 months, you're doing something very wrong.
That I agree. I've been on many projects where the clients are not involved for 6 months. Where Agile is actually saying we want to get the clients potentially involved every 2 weeks. We're showing them something. Even better is, can we have someone from the client be part of our product owner so that they're there all the time? For our internal projects, we do that. we have someone from our business organization who is part of the team. They're there every single day. They're part of the conversation. So that feedback is so fast. If they have a question, they turn to the person and they ask them because they're sitting right there. Imagine even if we get together every 2 weeks or 4 weeks with our customer, that's a very long cycle. It's usually a big formal meeting, lots of people around. You don't quite get the answers you want. Agile's saying, no, I'll just ask the person because we're going to have a much more informal conversation. We can talk in real time. Or again, as part of the demos, we're showing those demos every 2 weeks. So we're getting that much faster feedback. So I don't think we're that far apart, but I think depending on how you structure those milestones, you could see this type of an effect. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the question. That's great. Anyone else? Okay.
Well, it seems like everything is clear now.
My LinkedIn is there. Happy to, people want to reach out and connect and talk further. Happy to do that as well. But I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Christina is appreciating that you used a lot of, landscapes and a nice picture from Bucharest and Romania in general. So yeah, we really appreciate it. Okay. So last call. Any other question?
I was curious, Mike. How did you feel the transition with your best experience in project management? Yeah. Did you feel the transition from Waterfall to Agile? How did you live this? How was this for you?
In the beginning, I fought it. I hated it. I did not want to change. Agile was junk. It made no sense. I didn't understand it. And then I finally said, I think I need to really pay attention and really learn because something is happening. I don't understand what, but I need to figure this out. And when I relaxed, started to look and think, and I said, let me try to interpret it from a project manager background, from my PM background, my extensive experience. That's where these presentations come from. It was me trying to explain it to myself. And then I share my slides and people said, oh, that's what Agile's all about. Now I understand. So it was definitely a few-year journey of observing some teams doing it, kind of paying attention, trying to figure it out. And then I had an opportunity to do it myself. And I went, oh, well, wait, we can do this better. Wait, this is actually easier. This is more fun. This is more interesting. And I kept learning and learning and learning. And then I kept thinking back to things I learned many years ago, high-performing teams, team dynamics. And that's when I realized, I said, 80% of the industry talks about Agile from a software development point of view. And that's when I said, no, these ideas are not about software development. They benefit software development, but it's not a software development technique. And that's when I really started to understand, this is what Agile is really about. And look at all these additional places we can make it applicable. And that's been part of my journey, going through that path from didn't like it, I hated it, had to learn it, started to learn it, did it, liked it, and now I speak on it. And it's been several years through that journey.
Yeah. Well, if Agile is not only related to software development, it's for sure related to product engineering and product management in general. Any kind of products, not only software.
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
So, Mike, again, we thank you very much for this presentation. We're waiting for you for the coming events this year or in the coming future anyway.
Oh,
And
happy to participate, happy to join. Definitely, please invite me.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you. We'll do that.
And mulțumesc. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah, mulțumesc.
Mulțumesc. Okay.
That's right. You.
Yeah. It's a little harder to find good Romanian lessons in the US.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's not the first that comes up in the searching.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're right.
All
Okay,
right.
guys.
Carol,
So thank you, and see you again. I just want to remind you that we're going to start a new project management marathon next month. So let's keep in touch. Okay, then goodbye, and have a nice day, Mike, and have a nice evening, folks.
Yep. Take care.
Thank you.
You.
Bye-bye.
Bye.